Three, two, one. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Nine Hole Podcast. This is your host, Ian Miller. I hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. I wanted to hit on today the topic of the week for the Nine Hole newsletter this past week. And it is basically what the presence of a vet is. I wanted to talk about the impact that a veteran presence can have in a locker room. I wanted to talk about the impact that these veterans can have on younger players like myself at the time. And I wanted to hit on three specific stories of when a veteran had a positive impact on me and my career. I wanted to hit on those specific instances. I wanted to try to relate that to you guys and let you guys know that anytime that you have the opportunity to take somebody under your wing, be that veteran presence in a positive light, that it has a plethora of positive consequences that can take shape after that. It can influence the outcome of your team, it can influence the outcome of the game, the season, or a player's career and how they kind of go about their business, like I will share and relate in my personal examples. I wanted to end this episode maybe with an idea behind, man, if you're struggling right now, if things aren't going where you want them to go in your season, you're not having the numbers and the success that you want to be having, there are ways to go about doing that. There is a process to becoming the player that you want to be. There is a way to bridge the gap, is what I'm going to talk about here towards the end of this episode. And then, maybe throw in something that Zach Granite talked about in this past week about playing your game, staying true to yourself, and the regrets that he had through his, minor and major league career. We'll get into it. Like I said, I hope everybody had a great Mother's Day weekend, man. So I wanted to talk about, taking somebody under your wing and what that can do for them in the game of baseball and on the baseball field. And so, obviously, whether it is a coach taking a player under their wing, showing them the ropes, teaching them the game, teaching them how to go about their business, or if it is a more veteran player, maybe somebody that's had longevity in the game, maybe it is the leader on the team, the veteran clubhouse guy, whatever it is, taking a player under your wing and kind of guiding them forward is something that is extremely beneficial. And teams have positive impacts from the veteran presence that these players are kind of able to shine on lesser players or less experienced players, man. So I wanted to talk about three specific instances where major league established veterans took me under their wing. They helped me out, and man, they kind of changed the trajectory of my career and kind of how I went about looking at the game, how I went about treating others, and how I went about kind of preparing, man. And so my way of giving that back, my way of paying it forward, is what I'm doing here in the Nine Hole Podcast. So the Nine Hole Podcast, the Nine Hole newsletter, that is my way of giving my insight, giving what I've learned, giving what I've experienced back to the next generation of major league hopefuls, the next generation of college baseball players, the next generation of youth baseball players, whatever it is. This is how I'm doing it, man, and I'm having a blast doing it. I appreciate everybody tuning in, whether it is on YouTube or it's on Apple Podcasts, man. Appreciate you tuning in. Thank you for following along. So I wanted to talk about, specific instance number one, man. In 2018, I had just gotten off of the minor league player of the year prior. So in 2017, I lit the world on fire, won the Mariners minor league player of the year, hit fantastically, stole a bunch of bases, played pretty solid defense. So I won the minor league player of the year, and I was going into 2018 on a high note. I just made the top prospect lists for like the first time in my career, and I was feeling good, man. So this was my first real full season run at AAA. So this was in 2018, man, and in 2018, I was in Tacoma, Washington for my AAA, man, and so I was playing alongside guys like Jason Worth. And so Jason Worth obviously is a veteran dude who has had a plethora of success in the big leagues. And so I also tried to emulate him growing up. I grew up in Philadelphia. He won a World Series for Philadelphia Phillies in 2008, man. So I watched him. I tried to play like him. And so being able to share a locker room with him later in my career, towards the middle of my journey when things were starting to get hot before I made it to big leagues, I wanted to try to consume as much as I could for him. I wanted from him. I wanted to see how he went about his business. I wanted to see and like hear about what he thought about when he was going up to the plate. I wanted to know what he thought about in the outfield, all that stuff, man. I wanted to just absorb. I wanted to be a sponge. I wanted to be around him, and I wanted to be a sponge. So everybody was more advanced. Everybody was older in AAA, man. I talked about it here before, and it's been, in the media about the way that minor leaguers get paid, man. I was 26 years old at the time in 2018, and I was making $950 after taxes every 2 weeks. And so, man, when you're in AAA, the road series are a little farther away, so you fly. So you fly commercial, and so because of that, the coaches and the organizations that you play for, they want you to look nice on these, public flights. So I don't really have any nice clothes, man. I'm not making a ton of money, and so I remember we were going out to Las Vegas, man. Um, yeah, we were going to Las Vegas, and Jason Worth was like, "Dude, you don't really have a whole bunch of nice clothes. Let me get you a couple dress shirts." And also, when you're in AAA, you're one step away from the big league. So they always say make sure when you're on the road, when you go on the road series and you're traveling, that you bring a suit jacket just in case you get called up on the road. If you get a call, from the Seattle Mariners when you're in Vegas in a AAA series and they say, "Hey, we need you at Safeco tonight," you're going to take the next flight out and you're going to wear, some pants or some, nice jeans, and you're going to wear a suit jacket. You want to show up in that. So I didn't have any of that. So Jason Worth took me under his wing. He sent me to his personal tailor when we were out there in Vegas. I got hooked up with a nice jacket and some nice dress shirts, man, and I was ready to go. It really it just like turned things around for me. Something so small like that, putting me under his wing, showing me that he valued kind of how I was going about my business, how I presented myself. It meant a lot, dude. So I was able to get some dress shirts. That night, we ended up getting a full experience. We've never really experienced anything like this. We never really made money. I'm talking about my wife and I. Dude, we were in box seats that night for Calvin Harris. So J Dub took us out, treated us right, man. Gave us some experiences that we've never had before, and I don't know if we'd ever get to experience that had it not been for Jason Worth. But a couple teammates and I and our wives, man, we enjoyed ourselves. It was an awesome experience, and it was just a way that Jason Worth showed that he cared for his teammates, his AAA teammates at the time. It gave me confidence when I was traveling, that just in case if there's a call up going on, I'm ready to rock. It showed that a more veteran leader, somebody that's won a World Series, that has been in the big leagues for a long time, cares about his younger players, his younger teammates, man. That made me feel good. And dude, I was kind of scratching and clawing like up until that point in the season. So I had something to look forward to. Yeah, I'm hitting like 260 at the time. I'm not having a fantastic year, but I have this jacket. I have this jacket ready for my big league call up. It gave me hope throughout the remainder of my season to play hard and maybe anticipate a call up, dude. So I'm grateful for that, man. And just something as small as that can really go a long way. It can change a career. It can change the way somebody looks or views their career, their experience, man, and maybe even how they treat others, dude. So yeah, I got to rock those dress shirts at a cool club or two. Cool experience, man. I got to wear my jacket. When I got called up to the big leagues for the first time, that was awesome, dude. And it's something that I'm extremely thankful for. That is one way that a major league veteran kind of put me under his wing, and that veteran presence lifting me up and kind of like propelling me forward a little bit, if you will. So number two, this is a really cool one as well, man. It's something that does mean a lot to me, and it's something that was important to me, man. So when I had gotten called up to the big leagues for the first time in 2019, I had gotten traded from the Seattle Mariners over to the Minnesota Twins, and so when I had gotten traded over from the Mariners to the Twins, I didn't know anybody in the Twins organization. I wasn't up in the big leagues with the Seattle Mariners, so I didn't know how a big leaguer necessarily acted. I didn't know what their routines were. I didn't know that there was a different schedule and a different way of preparing if you're a starter as opposed to a bench player. And so when I got up to the big leagues with the Minnesota Twins, I didn't know anybody, and I was in a different role. I was used to being a starter in the minor leagues, and now I'm a bench player in the big leagues with the Minnesota Twins. So I had gotten my first, I got my first taste of the big leagues in Fenway Park. I debuted in the outfield. I caught a fly ball, all that stuff. But I was really like chomping at the bit to get some major league action. I wanted to get some ABs. I wanted to get some action out in the outfield. I wanted to prove my worth, dude. I've been waiting forever for this opportunity, and here I was. Like, I'd like to play. I'd like to get after it. And so I remember we are back at Target Field. We're at home, man, it's like the first or second inning, and I go inside. I go into the locker room to go take a piss. And while I'm going to the bathroom, I take my phone out and I'm texting. I'm getting lost on my phone a little bit, and I'm in the locker room. I sit down on one of one of the beautiful chairs that they have in there, recliner chairs. They even got massagers in there. It's incredible. And so I'm sitting down, I'm on my phone, I'm texting, I'm getting a massage at one of these chairs. I'm losing track of time, obviously. I can see the game up on the screen. I'm still watching. I'm just inside. And Marwin Gonzalez comes in and he calls me over. He goes, "Hey, Ian, come here." So I put my phone away. I'm like, "Shit, dude. I know I'm not supposed to be on my phone. I was just texting it, lost track of time." He pulls me over and he kind of puts me under his arm. He's like, "Hey, dude, you can't be doing that. You can't have one of these coaches come in the locker room and see you on your phone. So you are here, you're in the major leagues, you are in the big leagues, and you are a bench player and you are chomping at the bit for your opportunity. You need to be out there and you need to be ready from like first pitch on." And so I learned then a certain way that Major League Baseball players carried themselves, how they acted in the locker room, on the bench, amongst their teammates. I learned how to kind of go about your business the right way. And I learned that bench players have a different role and a different way that they prepare than the starters. And so he kind of shed some light on when I needed to be, hot, when I needed to be ready coming in off the bench, if it's AL versus NL at the time, when I'd be used and when I should be ready, what to look for, all this stuff. And so I went back out there, man, and I went about my business. And so I took that with a grain of salt. I took that and I was like, you know what, man, I'll be better prepared. I'll go about my business and I'll be ready for my next opportunity, whenever that is, dude. And so literally the next day, we are playing at home again. We're playing the Cleveland Indians. They were the Indians at the time. Um, and so it's the bottom of the first inning, top of the first goes, bottom of the first, the home team's up, Minnesota Twins, and Max Kepler is leading off the game, and he swings and he hurts his shoulder. And so he's jogging down to first. And because I listened to Marwin Gonzalez's advice from yesterday, when he took me under his wing and he told me how to go about my business, how to go about my preparation and my practice in order to be the best bench player and the best I could be at my role, I was ready for the opportunity. Max Kepler came out in the bottom of the first after his first at bat, and they said, "Hey, Miller, you're in." Rocco Baldelli came up to me and said, "Miller, you're in." So I go in there in the top of the second inning. I am ready because of Marwin Gonzalez schooling me in the art of being a professional the day before. And I go out there and literally, I think it was the second batter of that inning. I was ready and I get my opportunity in the outfield. There's a man on first base, and I think it was Greg Allen for the Indians had hit a double into the gap, and I cut it off in right center field, and I ended up making a strike throw to second base to get him out, to throw him out, cold off the bench. It was a cool day in September in Minnesota at Target Field, and I was cold off the bench, but I was prepared and I was ready because of Marwin Gonzalez's advice. He took me under his wing, and I threw a guy out at second base. I got my first and only major league assist in the outfield on my first play because I was ready from Marwin Gonzalez's advice. So that is another way that, man, maybe that got me more opportunities for the rest of my career, right? Maybe that allowed me to sign with the Cubs the next year. I don't know what that was. But that is another instance of where a major league veteran and his presence had a severe impact on my career and how I went about my business moving forward. So I am extremely grateful there. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how that works, man. It's crazy how that works. Lastly, I will touch on the COVID year, 2020, man. Everybody got affected by COVID. Shut down the seasons, shut down all that stuff. So I was with the Chicago Cubs in 2020 when this all hit, and it looked like, man, I was one of the last cuts. Like I was the last non-roster guy on the team. It looked like I was scheduled to make the team, and COVID hits, man. And so everything shuts down, and I'm kind of left out in Arizona with my wife at the time. And there are a whole bunch of rules whether you are on the roster or you aren't on the roster. And so I was a mainstay here with the Cubs in spring training in 2020. And when COVID hits, they tell me, hey, you got to step away. You can't be practicing with the team. You can't get your reps in while the major league roster players are able to show up to the field and get their work in. I'm like, dude, I stayed out here. I looked like I was about to make the team, and now I can't even show up to practices. Like, what are we doing? And so I remember that, guys like Jason Hayward and Jason Kipnis were out there, who were Chicago residents. And so when things started kind of picking back up, and it looked like, hey, we're going to start opening things back up for spring training 2.0, it looks like there's going to be a Major League Baseball season this year. It's just going to be abbreviated. We'll start a little later and we will play less games. That's when shit started to ramp up. That's when, players were getting anxious about practice, about getting reps in, about moving to the home city. So that's when I moved out to Chicago with my wife. And man, players like Jason Hayward and Jason Kipnis were instrumental in organizing, getting me to these practices, making me feel like I was still part of the team, even though I wasn't on the roster. I don't even think Kipnis was on the roster at the time, but these veteran dudes kind of took me under their wing and they allowed me to come to these practices. They allowed me to be a part of it. They allowed me to be on the group chats, and they kind of just they made me feel like I was supposed to be there, man. They made me feel like I was part of the team. And so I remember doing some of these workouts behind the scenes, with dudes like Jason Hayward, Jason Kipnis, Anthony Rizzo, like Almora, Schwarber, all those dudes. And we were just kind of getting after it, man. We were having a good time, but we were working hard. And I was able to kind of rep in with those guys because of dudes like Jason Hayward and Jason Kipnis allowing me to be a part of it. And so, man, I don't know if those workouts necessarily allowed me to make my major league debut with the Cubs that year. I was up with the Cubs for a couple days that year, man, but who knows? But like during that lockdown, I would not have had the opportunity to get the work in, to have those experiences had it not been for those more veteran dudes looking out for me, kind of paving the way and taking me under their wing a little bit, man. So I was doing workouts with these dudes, and at the time that Michael Jordan documentary was out, and that's what all the buzz was, man. 2020. I took that personal Michael Jordan, man. I don't even remember like what the name of that documentary was, but um, I really had no idea much about basketball, dude, and I had no idea about Michael Jordan's his performance coach. And so when I'm doing these workouts with Hayward and Kipnis and Rizzo and Schwarber, like those dudes in Chicago, we're working out with a pretty highly regarded performance coach. Turns out to be Michael Jordan's performance coach. I didn't even know this. This is the dude that I was watching on the documentary on my couch, a week prior. So I had no idea who Tim Grover was, but I was there. I was just excited for the opportunity, and it was orchestrated and kind of led by these, senior members of the team. And so this veteran presence was able to kind of like, dude, guide me and then get me ready for the season. And I was grateful for that, man. I got to hang out with these dudes behind the scenes, experience the kind of things that they experienced, see how they went about their life, man. And I'll be forever grateful for that. I remember running sprints until I threw up, trying to keep up with dudes like Kipnis, Hayward, Rizzo, all those guys. I remember throwing up in front of people, just trying to keep up with those guys, man. Trying to get back into shape, trying to get back into playing shape to try to make the team, man. And so that was big time. Maybe I don't make that team had I not been given that opportunity from the more veteran dudes to rep with them, see how they go about their business, man. And we'll talk about it a little bit. Jason Kipnis will be on the 9 Hole podcast at some point moving forward. So you will be able to see and hear from Jason Kipnis at some point, man. I'm excited to bring you guys that. So, man, I wanted to also talk about, bridging the gap, man. I wanted to talk about, look, if you're not where you're at, if you're not where you want to be right now in your season, um, why is that? Why is that? Like it's not necessarily a mechanic or uh, a specific way you hit or a specific way you stand, right? It's not your stance, dude. Um, First, like everybody knows that hitting 300 is probably one of the sweetest feelings in the world, man. If you're a baseball player, you understand that having a 300 batting average is probably one of the best feelings in the world. And if you've been fortunate enough to experience that, you know that, man. When you hit 300, all is right with the world. All feels well. All feels good. You can do no wrong. So regardless of whatever level you're at or what it looks like, um, you know, 300's where you want to be at, right? Everybody has different goals. Everybody has different tools. Everybody has different ways that they're going to go about doing that. But we can all agree that hitting above 300, if you are a hitter, is probably one of the best feelings in the world. How that equates to the pitching side, dude, I am not a pitching guy, but obviously a 300 plus batting average looks like a very low ERA over the entirety of a season for a pitcher, man. And so if you've never experienced a season where you've dominated or you don't usually accomplish, those goals that you set out to accomplish, you don't hit the numbers that you set out to hit, you don't do the things that you initially wanted to do at the start of the season. I think personally it's got something to do with how you go about overcoming your obstacles, how you deal with adversity and what that kind of looks like, how you go about overcoming that stuff, man. If you want to become a 300 hitter, if you are currently not a 300 hitter and you want to become a 300 hitter, you need to become that type of person that is capable of hitting 300. Let me get some water. So, if you want to become a 300 hitter, you need to become the type of person that is capable of hitting 300. It is that simple, man. It's not a certain mechanic. Like I said, it's not the way you hold the bat. It's not the way that you stand. It's not your stance, man. How can you possibly hit 330, right? Let's say 330 now. How can you possibly hit 330 if you aren't capable of hitting at a 330 clip? That would be unfair to assume that you are a 330 hitter. If you don't put in any practice, you don't put in any work, you don't have effort or attitude to be a 330 hitter. How can you be a 330 hitter if you aren't the type of person that can do that? That would be unfair to put that assessment on you. How can you win a championship in the same breath, man? How can you win a championship if you aren't capable of playing at a championship level? Like if you aren't capable of playing championship caliber baseball, how can you assume that you're capable of winning a championship, man? That's unfair to put that assessment on you. It's even unfair to think like that. If you can be the person, then you can learn the skills. If you can learn the skills, then you can eventually do the results. Regardless of the obstacles, the challenges, the adversities that you are currently battling with, if you can be the person and you can learn the skills, then you can do the results. In order to hit 300 or in order to be a 300 hitter, you need to be the person. You need to learn the skills, you need to put in the time, and then you need to do the results. That's how you make that happen. The obstacles that you face on the field, off the field, relating to baseball, unrelating to baseball, make you stronger and they eventually become the way. If you are struggling with your hitting and you are a 220 hitter, you want to be a 320 hitter, well, you need to be the type of dude that can hit 320. You need to be the type of dude that is capable of adding another 100 points onto his batting average. How can you be a 320 hitter if you go about your business like a 220 hitter? How can you be a 320 hitter with 320 results if you put in a 220 hitter's work ethic or a 220 hitter's type of practice or his routine in the cage, man? If you are a level 6 or a level 7, you cannot expect yourself to produce level 10 results. That's luck. And over the course of a 50 plus game season or a long season or a full season, you can't get lucky and hit 300. Not over the course of a full season, man. It does not work like that. Eventually, the numbers don't lie. So if you want to hit above 300, if you want to be a 300 hitter, you need to become a 300 hitter. You need to become the player that is capable of putting in that 300 hitter work, learning the 300 hitter skills, and being that 300 hitter, either by hard work, discipline, sacrifice, whatever that is, man. You need to become that 300 hitter. That's how you perform, and that's how you have those results. That's how you do it. You be the person. How do you do that? How do you be the person? Man, you learn those skills and you do those results. You will become that person, right? Start acting like that person. Start acting like that person would in practice. Start practicing like that person would. How would a 320 player or a 320 hitter, 320 batter go about his batting practice today? How would he hit? Would he be professional? Would he be disciplined? Would he be locked in? Man, start acting there. Start start taking action there. That's a great way to start, man. Yeah, I bet you'll start seeing results, man, if that's how you go about it. The seasons where I was able to produce level 10 results over the entirety of the season, right? When I was able to produce those level 10 results, those were the seasons where I was putting in that level 10 practice with level 10 effort paired with level 10 discipline. So if you want to produce those results, you need to become that player. You need to learn those skills and you need to put in that time, man. The moral of that story is level 6s and 7s cannot produce level 10 results, man. If you think differently, man, you are fooling yourself and you're going to try to leave it up to luck, man. Do not do that. Do not do that. So this week, on Wednesday, man, I will have Nick Dini back on the Nine Hole Podcast. He's been killing it in the youth baseball space. Excited to have him back on here. That's going to be at 1:30 Eastern. Little businessman special, man. Get him on here talking about some youth baseball stuff a little bit more. But we're going to be talking a little bit more in depth about how to get out of a mid-season or a late season funk, a rut, a slump, however you want to call it. We're going to be talking about specific instances where we weren't hitting or performing where we wanted to in this point of the season and what we were able to do to get up out of that and finish strong, progress, move forward, and produce the years like after that, man. So we'll be talking about that. We'll unpack that a little bit more on Wednesday, like I said. And before we get out of here, man, I just wanted to touch on something that one of the Nine Hole guest touched on this past week, man. So um, on Wednesday, I was able to have Zach Granite on, man. So Zach Granite was kind of my counterpart throughout my baseball journey. He went to Seton Hall. He was a little speed guy at Seton Hall, played the outfield, center field, same skill set that I had at Wagner. And so, man, we were pretty similar in skill sets, how we played, similar in our numbers and everything, and similar in just how we went about our business. So we played each other a couple times. So he was the dude that I was always up against. I was always trying to do better then. And same thing with our minor league career. He got drafted in the 14th round, same round as me, same draft as me, same year. And so we kind of progressed at the same rate, man. And so when I was talking to him about how he was able to progress through his career, what worked for him, what didn't work for him, and then ultimately like what were his regrets, he talked about when he played his game, he was able to separate, he was able to maximize, he was able to stand out, and he was able to ascend up the ladder of his minor league career, getting to the big leagues. He stole 160 plus bags throughout his major and minor league career, the majority happening obviously in the minor leagues. But we were talking about stolen bases. We were talking about how to steal, how to trick the pitcher into thinking you're not going and then taking the bag. He was talking about some ways to do that. But he was talking about looking back at his career and having some regrets, man. And when I look back at my career, I don't have any regrets. I left it all in the field. Like I played my game. Yeah, I wasn't the best hitter in the world, but I did it my way. I went about, my way, and I tried to utilize my skills. And so looking back on Granite's career, his own words, he had regrets with how his last couple of years ended up because he wasn't focused on playing his game. See, every one of us as baseball players, we all share something in common. At some point, our careers are going to end. We're going to take the jersey off, the uniform off for the last time, dude. It is going to happen. It is inevitable. I I was in the big leagues, I was in the minor leagues, I was in college, and I thought, dude, there's no way that my career is going to end. I'll play baseball forever. You know damn well your career is going to end at some point. Do not for a second think that it won't. And when you look back on your career, when it's all said and done, like we've been able to do here at the Nine Hope Podcast, do not look back on your career and have regrets. And so I wanted to bring that up because it's important to talk about it. Zach Granite was looking back at his career as a little small speed dude that stole bases, and his numbers struggled his last, 2 years, 3 years, maybe whatever it was of his career. And he was a little upset, man, because he was playing somebody else's game. He wasn't staying true to himself. He was trying to hit the ball harder. He wasn't necessarily bunting and running, being a contact guy. He was swinging and missing. He was trying to hit the gaps at a little higher exit velo and launch angle and all that stuff. So his numbers were really struggling. And so when I had asked him to elaborate a little bit on any type of regrets or frustrations he had in his career, that's what he brought up, man. He was frustrated. He said that he doesn't know if he would ever be able to forgive himself for not staying true to himself, for his skill set, staying true to his game. And he said he doesn't know if he'll ever be able to forgive himself because he strayed away from who he was as a player, what his strengths were, what his skill set was, and he focused solely on the metrics, the data that he was being evaluated on. And he tried to drive the ball more. He tried to put the ball in the air a little bit more, and he ended up suffering for it, and his numbers suffered, man. So don't do that. I just wanted to leave you guys with that as we wrap up here this episode of the Nine Hole podcast, man. Yeah, talked about leadership, specific examples, a couple of examples and veteran presence that really were beneficial to my career. Talked a little bit about bridging the gap in between where you're at, where you want to be, and like what that process looks like. It's about becoming that player. It's about becoming the person that is capable of that performance, of those results, of those stats. It's not a singular mechanic. It's not a single way that you stand or hold the bat or swing or whatever it is, man. It's about transformation. It's about becoming that better person. And then we ended a little bit about any regrets that somebody had in their career, man. Zach Granite, awesome to have him on here and talk about that, man. So I appreciate everybody tuning in here for this episode of the Nine Hole podcast. We will be back on Wednesday to talk more about what to do if you are in this point of your season or your career and you're not where you want to be. And we'll hit on some actionable items on how to progress, how to bridge that gap between where you're at and where you want to be. I appreciate everybody tuning in to the Nine Hole podcast. We will catch you guys here next time. Take care, fellas.